Hi, everyone. I'm Sean Corkum, and I'm the Assistant Director of Engineering responsible for the CI/CD platform team here at Northwestern Mutual. I want to start off by thanking you for joining me today for this candid talk about my experiences of becoming a people leader last year during the pandemic. So naturally, we got to start back at the beginning. January 2020, I moved from being an individual contributor, i.e. senior engineer, into a people leadership position. The one little thing that may be different is that I moved into that leadership position on the same team. Now, those of you that have done that same kind of change know that it brings a little extra awkwardness. It changes how people interact with you seemingly overnight. And you may not get that same kind of effect when you move into a leadership position, within another group. Obviously, the major difference is you don't have the same kind of pre-existing relationships that you do when you make this transition within the same team. Now, through the whole promotion process and the different interviews with senior leadership here at Northwestern Mutual, I was already getting prepped about expect people to act differently, pretty much immediately after the announcement comes out. And while all of my leadership had done everything they could, and I thought I understood, after the change, I was still surprised at how noticeable it really was. And thinking back on it after a year now, you can really empathize with everybody. Everything just kind of changed for them. Their whole routine and the whole social construct of the group just got jarred to the side and was now a little different. Yesterday you were all coworkers and engineers together, and now today they all report to you. So it's that awkward feeling of, okay, I used to talk to you like this all the time, but now I have this feeling that I need to talk to you like you're the boss, and I can't say certain things. And that kind of feeling is something that is very difficult as a new people leader to try to get everybody to overcome and understand that you really care about their well-being and their careers, and making sure that you can do everything possible to do the best for them so that they can succeed. And you have to take a lot of steps to reassure them and prove to them to earn their trust in this new role, that really is how you feel, how you act, and how you're going to conduct yourself. And I'll get a little more into that later, but first, let's fast forward a little from January. March 11th, the World Health Organization declares COVID-19 a pandemic. And March 12th, here at Northwestern Mutual, we all headed home and began our remote work life. Now, thankfully, between January and March 12th, we had already started putting in some changes within our team as to how we kind of functioned as a group. And while these changes weren't put in specifically to plan for a pandemic, they did seem to help with the transition from being in the office, or at least having the option to be in the office, to all of us being all remote all the time. So I should start with beginning that at this point, my team did have a remote engineer who was obviously never in the office, and there was never really an official mandate that everybody had to be in the office every single day. We would occasionally have people you'd work from home one day for whatever reason, and it was totally fine as long as everybody you made all your meetings and you got all your work done. Nobody batted an eye. But one of the things that we used to do, and that I asked the team to go out on a limb with me and just give this a try and we'll see how it went, was changing the way we did stand-up. Previously within the group, and for a number of years really, we used Slack for our stand-up. At the beginning of the day, we post our yesterday, today, any blockers, and then we get on with our day. What I asked the team to do was, instead of just posting your update every day, let's actually do an in-person and via video stand-up, kind of a real stand-up. One of the big reasons that I wanted to do this was, with the Slack stand-up, while I was reading everybody's messages every day, not all the engineers were always reading everybody's posts every day, which it's understandable. You're busy with a billion other things. Um, so having this chance to take, just 15 minutes out of the day for us all to, you know, be together and actually talk, uh, I felt was really important. And it proved out to be, even more important with, the pandemic and moving to remote work. But the real reason I was trying to do this was I wanted the engineers to have a time that was dedicated every day for them to talk to each other. The stand-ups have nothing to do with me. I'm just kind of there, and I give them my updates and what I'm working on as well. But the real point of the stand-up is for them to be able to talk about what they're working on, what they might be having trouble with, and sharing experiences with each other. The team had people that were fresh out of school to people that had a decade plus experience, and everything in between. So obviously everybody's got their different backgrounds and they've had different experiences. If somebody's having an issue with something and trying, really struggling to get it to work right, you know, it's more than likely that somebody else on the team has had a similar experience and either knows how to fix it or knows some things to say, okay, well, I'm not entirely sure what the root of the problem is, but here's a couple of places that you can check that should get you to the root of the problem. And these are things that obviously either happen right during the stand up, or they are able to connect immediately after. And being able to share that knowledge really helps everybody grow, and then helps keep everybody's productivity up, and then we all crush our goals and we look like rock stars at the end of the year. Now, the way that I felt that this helped with the transition into remote work was we were already used to people being in and out of the office and being online and getting together every day at this point to talk. So when all of a sudden the entire routine of being able to go into the office, and now we're all at home, and it starts becoming more and more evident that this isn't going to be a short time thing that we're working from home. It helps to have little things to hold on to that are the same when it feels like everything's kind of spinning out of control around you. Having that feeling of control over certain parts is a very powerful thing for your mental well-being. Along with that, it helps with that whole continuity of work, like how we functioned as a group still felt the same, even though it wasn't completely the same. The other thing that contributed to that, and I can't say it's something new that I had implemented, it's just the way our team had always functioned, was we always went with a everything is code mindset. So we were forced to use our tooling that we were providing to the rest of the enterprise and experiencing things the same way as our customers. I mean, we're the CI/CD platform team. If we weren't using any kind of CI/CD processes at all, it'd be pretty hypocritical. But this whole using everything as code and leveraging Terraform to deploy our resources into AWS, and Ansible Tower for last mile configuration for other products and stuff like that. We were already used to this whole working this way, and again, that helped contribute to that kind of continuity of work, where work still felt the same, even though we were all apart. And again, going back to the fact that everything else kind of felt a little out of control, or a little nervous, because we didn't know what was happening, and we kept getting the news reports about more and more cases, and people passing away. Like, having something that still felt normal was very powerful, I think, for a lot of us. Now, beyond that, just for myself, within the first couple of months and kind of coming into the pandemic, there were things that I realized I needed to change, particularly in myself. One of the big ones that came about right off the bat was needing to kind of literally flipped my mindset, changed the way I thought about work. Um, as an individual contributor, you're very used to, I have X tasks on my backlog. I need to complete X goals. I'm the SME for these products. And now none of that is going to make you successful as a people leader. While that may have helped me get to that point, if I would have kept going down that route, I would have completely failed my team. I had to change my mindset and look at everything as, how can I best support the team? How can I best put them in the right position to be as successful as they possibly can? As a leader, all of your success comes from your team's success. So everything I try to do is to ensure that I'm helping them. I'm making sure they have what they need. I'm making sure they get the support they need, whether it's something for work or something outside of work. Occasionally we all just need somebody to talk to. And that kind of goes into something else I tried to start developing, very quickly, realizing it was going to be important. And it's basically developing kind of a culture of trust, for better term or not. But I needed everybody to start realizing that, while we were, kind of friends before, in my new position, I was very focused on them and cared about them. And I don't just mean like in a lip service way, like, oh yeah, care about you, buddy. I really cared, and I needed to find ways to show that I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that I put them in the best position I possibly can, to make them as successful as I possibly can, to help them with their career goals, to do what I can to help drive that for them. And it kind of starts with some very simple things. Right off the bat, I think the best things that I was able to do was act on feedback. Getting feedback from your team is just literal gold dust. And it's them reaching out saying, like, this is what I need, and giving you the perfect opportunity to build that trust with them, to show them that you really do care, you are listening, you want to make things better. Right off the bat, an example I can use is, we drastically cut back the number of meetings for the engineers. So previously, we had a lot of meeting fatigue. Meetings that kind of felt like they were for meeting's sake. So we cut it back to, it was basically most days, the engineers, the only thing on their calendar was stand-up. A lot of the kind of agile scrum meetings that we had before kind of nixed for a while. We kept stand-up and we kept retro, because retro is another super important part. And I'll dig into that a little bit more in a bit. But getting rid of all these extra meetings was a great way for me to, instantly act on some feedback they'd given me. And after that, everybody kind of felt like they had room to breathe. They had time to actually get their work done. Interestingly, though, that lasted for about 6 months. And sometime around the 6-month mark, I started getting new feedback from the team, and feedback that actually kind of surprised me. They started asking for more meetings. Now, it wasn't just they wanted meetings for the sake of just having meetings and hanging out on a Zoom call, but they had specific asks. They wanted to have more of a cadence around bigger picture kind of stuff for our team. Things around like our product roadmap. They actually wanted more of a sprint review, so they could see not only what they were doing this sprint, and get ideas of what everybody else was doing. They could see what everybody was working on this sprint. They could see what everybody was working on next sprint, and kind of getting ideas about what the flow of work was looking like in the short term, as compared to the long term of what the roadmap kind of looks like. So we actually, my product manager and I, my product manager was, ecstatic to get this feedback. She was kind of like poking me a little bit on this. Hey, have we thought about doing sprint reviews? And I was still very much in, protection mode of the team, of keeping, this meeting load very light. But once they started asking for something, we started working this back in. And what we ended up doing was, we have a roadmap review that's kind of a once a quarter. And then we do a very short sprint review, but we do it once a week. It's 30 minutes, and we kind of do a hard stop at that 30 minutes. But the way it falls with how our sprints go, we do 2-week sprints. One sprint review falls right in the middle of the sprint, and the other one falls right at the end of the sprint, basically the day before the next sprint starts. So that one that's in the middle, we're able to kind of more lightly go through it. It's not super picky about what's going into next sprint, but we're kind of getting an idea. We're able to have that kind of mid-sprint review of the work that we have in this sprint, and start acknowledging stories that may need to get pushed into the next sprint because something came up in support, or a different story we weren't able to get the pointing quite right, and it turned out to be something more difficult than we first thought. And then the second one, right at the end of the sprint, we're able to put a solid stamp on, this is what next sprint's going to look like. We know what stories might fall over, if any, and the team is able to see what everybody's working on. Now, the other thing that I'm very particular about in this is constantly soliciting feedback from the team as to challenging me on how this is going. So if they see something that, why are we doing this kind of work in this order, knowing what the roadmap kind of looks like, and they've had input on that as well, same as we do in the sprint review, having them challenge and debate about, how did we get to where we are, and what do we think the next important steps are. I don't always get every story created right. Sometimes we find ones that are missing. So we're able to get those created. We're able to sometimes, about face on some of the groups of stories that we're going to do. For example, if we're working on moving our artifact management tool, and as we're migrating one language over at a time, sometimes it makes sense for us to reprioritize some of the different languages because of how things are being used right now, and being able to give them just as big a seat at the table and have that kind of input as into how that's going to flow, again, keeps coming back to this building this culture of trust. I trust my team, and with this and leaving my ego at the door and everybody else, we're able to work together and get it right, rather than any single one of us being right. And that's really the important part. It helps us all as a team deliver an excellent product for our colleagues here at Northwestern Mutual. And at the end of the day, that's really what's important, delivering an outstanding product for our development engineers so that they can deliver outstanding products for Northwestern Mutual's customers. All right, so beyond the sprint planning, obviously I mentioned before that we kept retro around. Retro, as everybody knows, is a very, very important part of team health. It's an opportunity for everybody to get together and celebrate the achievements, but also air any grievances. And these grievances, again, tying back, feedback, these are the bigger things that I look on. Well, I try to do my best to celebrate all the wins, and the wins are super important. Hearing the negative feedback about things that are bothering my team are just as important as anything else to me, because that's them telling me there's an opportunity for me to do more for them, for me to help make a situation better. Again, remember, everything I do, and I had to flip my mindset, was I am supporting them, doing what I can to make sure that they're able to do the best. one of the things I also do with retros is I keep it as anonymous to me as possible. So the way we go about it, we have a Confluence page, and it has the usual, what was good, what was bad, stuff like that, the normal things you would go through in a retro. I bring it up on my screen, do my screen share so they can see exactly what I'm looking at and know I'm not, sneaking a peek and being shady. They all click edit and are able to fill out everything and put whatever they would like. And then we typically kind of share who's going to be DJ for that retro. So while they're filling everything out, we have a little bit of music playing, and it's kind of nice. They like to joke about my music and remind me that I'm getting old, and it's entertaining. But they're the only ones that can see what's going on. I wait for them to tell me, okay, we're done, we're ready. Nobody's filling anything out anymore. Then I'm able to hit edit and enter that part of Confluence and see all the changes that they added in the page. And we're able to go through them, celebrate the good, and start trying to figure out, how to address the less than good. Now, while sometimes you can tell, who wrote, what, because it's very specific to a certain task, I still try not to call anybody out. As I'm reading through all the other comments that are on there that are maybe more ambiguous, I never, ever try to guess who wrote it. I take it as it is. If it's something that's bothering the team, like I just, it's obvious, what it is. They wrote down literally what's bothering them. There's no reason to try to go through and guess who wrote that. I know what the problem is, and now I can start talking about the problem, and I can start trying to take action on the problem. We do go over them, within the team, and I'll ask them, questions about, what do they feel could be done to make that better, and I get it from all across my team, and it's something where we do have some people that are a little quieter than others, and I try to reinforce as best I can that this is a safe space. We're all here to just try to be better as a team, and we go from there. It does help. So beyond retros, obviously one-on-ones are very important as well. And when you're just starting out, it's surprising how hard it can be to switch that side of the table of one-on-ones, where as an engineer, you're used to being the one to walk in and just kind of ramble on sometimes and whatnot. But once you hop on the other side of the table, I've realized actually how important these meetings are. This is their chance to say whatever they want to me. And at first, I tried to be more chatty and keep the conversation going. And for me, that's a little tough. I'm not an incredibly extroverted kind of person, so being ultra chatty all the time is not really my thing. However, as I've kind of gone and grown and learned more about this process, and asked for advice from other people in leadership positions, how do you run your one-on-ones? And honestly, I've paid a lot of attention to my managers and my VP as I have one-on-ones with them, kind of seeing how they run it with me and trying to take some of that feedback so I can grow how I run it as well with my team. But really the important part that I learned was being that chatty person. That's not the right way to really even go about it. I had to learn to really just be a better listener. It's one thing to kind of get the conversation going so you don't just both stare at a screen for a while, like Michael Scott negotiating with Daryl, where he was refusing to be the first to speak. It's really their time to tell you anything that's bothering them, or ask for advice, or times to express like, hey, here's where I'm at in my career, but I kind of think I want to go down this route. And I've had that come up, and it's incredibly important for me, because now that individual and I were able to have the conversation about that and what going down that route means. And now I look actively for opportunities to get them experience doing that kind of a role, so that as that kind of a position opens up, I can vouch for them and recommend them for that job. And while it's always sad having somebody leave your team, there's a sense of pride as well that you did everything you could for them, and now they're able to grow and move into bigger positions, and have more of a voice about how things go within the company. It's incredibly gratifying, at least for me, as to to watch that happen and see that happen. Um, Other things that I've kind of learned with one-on-ones is don't try to hop into the line of thought, and definitely don't compare situations that you've had to theirs. Be quiet, let them talk. It's their experiences. You can't sit in their shoes and understand from their background how they feel. Let them tell you how they feel. And sometimes, whatever is coming up, they don't need you to solve a problem. They just need somebody to talk to and support them. Other times, yeah, there are specific things that come up that you can take action on, and you need to. You absolutely need to. I've repeated that multiple times, that taking action on any kind of feedback, that it's feasible, really helps show that you do care and helps build that culture of trust. And as that keeps growing, you'll get more and more feedback, and the team will become stronger and stronger. So with that, beyond all the other one-on-ones, soliciting feedback again, it's something I probably almost annoy the team with, because when we do have these larger meetings and we're doing something along these lines, I'm always asking them for feedback. I'm always asking them to basically tell me what they feel I'm doing wrong. I don't take it personally. I understand I'm not perfect. I'm never going to be perfect, but I want to make sure that I'm doing the best I can for them. Because like I said before, everything about my role now is making sure that they are able to do the absolute best they can. And with that, I want to thank you again for joining me. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you in the Q&A section, and I'll talk to you later. Bye. Hi, everyone. So thank you all for hanging out and listening to my talk. I know I rambled very, very long, so there really isn't a lot for Q&A here. But I did just want to say, some of the things that were, the biggest learns for me last year going through it all, obviously listening to the team, paying attention to them, trying to work on building that, what I was referring to as a, kind of culture of trust, but they need to know that you have their back and you are going to do what you can to be right by them. Something else that kind of got left out of the talk was, now that you're in this role, you need to remember, like, it's now your job to have the tough conversations. So any of you that have read Radical Candor, probably you've seen the grid, and knowing, like, making sure that you're not going into obnoxious aggression or being ruinously empathetic. That can be a difficult line to walk. And I know for myself, like right off the bat, and especially being on the new team and having friendships going into this role, I definitely went into kind of that ruinous empathy. I was wary of giving some people constructive criticism and having that tough talk. And if I could go back again, that is definitely something that I would redo and sit down with those individuals and tell them, like, okay, I know it's weird. This is awkward for everybody, but this is how it is now. This is what I'm going to need from you, and and try to explain, I'm here for you. I'm going to do everything I can to help you. I know what some of your career goals are already, and checking in, making sure that I'm not going off the rails and and forgot something or misunderstood, but then trying to take action to show like, okay, I know, here's what I can do to help, rather than waiting. I mean, eventually I did start having those conversations, but I wish I would have done them sooner. That's definitely one of the bigger takeaways I've had. The other part is always making sure, like, when it comes to feedback, like, don't wait. Don't wait for a one-on-one. If it's something that pops up, like, talk about it right away. Especially if it's something where somebody did something that they probably shouldn't have. Don't let it sit. By the time you come around to one-on-one, like, if it's a week later or something like that, they might not be front of mind anymore. Everything goes by so fast, and with all working from home, the days all blur together at this point. So just addressing things right away is another big takeaway that I've had. What strategies do I use to promote culture of realistic expectations other teams have regarding my team? That's a good question, Matt. So within our group, we actually have like not weekly, bi-weekly meeting with a lot of the other managers at our level from different groups across. So we're kind of constantly syncing as to where we are on different parts of our work. And you're probably not referring to like where things are on that. If you're talking more about like how, like, expect people to conduct themselves, kind of code of conduct wise, that's kind of something that's more set across NM. Like it's something that we all across the entire organization try to work on. Like, people expect everybody to treat somebody like a human being. Like if somebody's being that wild jerk, like that's something that leadership needs to address right away. It's just one of those unspoken bits. As it does go for the different work, like we have regular cadences and syncs on that. It's not to say it's a perfect system, but we are trying to make sure that if another team is dependent on something of ours for theirs, that we are giving them updates about where we are, when we think we'll be able to deliver that kind of a product. You're welcome. If there's any other questions, I don't know how long this will go. Trisha is giving me the thank you, Sean, so I'm going to guess we are just about out of time. But I wanted to thank you again all for coming in. Obligatory, we're hiring, so come check me out on LinkedIn. I can send you a link if looking for cloud engineers. So if you like automating things, you like working in AWS, not opposed to some on-prem work, come talk to me. I'm looking for you. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time today.